So, as you guys all know, AOC spoke for about 60 seconds at the Democratic National Convention. Now, a lot of people are wondering why she didn't get more time, a lot of progressives, that is. But she was chosen to nominate Bernie Sanders. Now, at the conventions, any candidate that gets over 300 delegates, typically, procedurally, they have two people nominate them, or at least some people nominate them. And so she did that. She didn't mention anything about Joe Biden, and so there was some manufactured consent hate against her made by the media, by the news media, that she's still clapping back on to this day, by the way. But Bernie Sanders gave what is pretty much a bombshell interview here with the Washington Post. And he actually reveals that she wasn't even actually invited to speak at the DNC, but that she was actually invited to speak by him.
Representative Ocasio-Cortez, should she have been given a longer speaking slot at the convention?
Well, I think there is some confusion about that. And I think the reason for the confusion has to do with the DNC and it has to do with the media. So let me tell you what happened because it's not complicated. Bob, as you are well aware, at conventions, people who ran for president, who received a certain minimal number of votes, are entitled to have their name brought forth and have their delegates vote for them. I won a number of states in this Democratic primary. And the people who supported me have a right to say, well, I voted for Bernie Sanders. And that's all that this is kind of perfunctory. This is what is done in every convention. It's done in normal Republican conventions, Democratic conventions. I asked Alexandria, we were told by the Biden campaign, which was fine, that you'll have two 1-minute slots, one to nominate you and one to second you. And we had Bob King, who's the former president of the United Automobile Workers, one of the great unions in this country from Michigan. Bob nominated me, and Alexandria seconded me. And I think what the DNC was saying is, oh, she's speaking. No, I mean they didn't invite her. I think they should have. That's a whole other story. They should have
Well,
invited her and more.
What's the story there?
Well, I mean the story is they should have had more progressive speaking, giving them speaking spots. But this was just a perfunctory nomination and seconding of me, of which there was 1 minute. That's it. And she was accused of not, saying she supported Biden. She was nominating me. She is, of course, supporting Biden. So I think the confusion there rests with, I think, what the DNC was saying, and certainly media not understanding what happens at a convention.
I totally get that, Senator, but it's also a choice to give her that 1 minute nominating speech versus
No, I gave her that
6
1 minute.
minutes or 7 minutes.
Yeah, that's right. I gave her the 1 minute. Now, that was my choice. If I wanted you to nominate me, I could have asked you. I could have asked anybody. I asked Bob King and Alexandria. But if your question is, should progressives, Alexandria and others, receive more time? Yes, I do think so. Absolutely.
So what you guys just heard there is definitely a big bombshell because, there were these reports in the beginning that she wasn't even slated to speak at all at the Democratic National Convention. Then we got the word, oh no, she's going to be speaking, but she's going to get a whopping 60 seconds. Now, there were a lot of other people who got a lot of time speaking. People like John Kasich and stuff like that got a lot of time speaking. She didn't seem to get much. But what Bernie Sanders is saying there, this is a bombshell story really for two reasons. One, because Bernie, as you saw, was criticizing and calling out the DNC, saying, hey, you should have more progressive speakers at your convention, saying, hey, this isn't cool. But the other piece of this puzzle is that he's basically revealing the DNC isn't the one that invited AOC to speak. This is actually misleading. The DNC didn't invite AOC to speak. I invited the AOC to come speak at the DNC. He says that the DNC gave me two 60-second slots. I chose AOC to be one of them and then Bob King to be the other. So I brought her. She wouldn't have been. And what he's implying there, my understanding from this is AOC would not have been a speaker at the Democratic National Convention had Bernie Sanders not chosen her. And remember, the reports in the beginning were indeed that she was not slated to speak. So it lines up. So that means that in actuality, in reality, Bernie Sanders is the only reason AOC even was at the convention, period. And so it looks like, obviously people like Nancy Pelosi don't like AOC. Some of the corporate Democrats don't like AOC. But she does have a lot of corporate Democrat fans, liberal fans. Even Hillary Clinton called her when she won her election. But I think it is an attempt to sort of block out progressives. Again, dude, these conventions are huge for name recognition. You have no idea how massive they are because so many eyeballs are on these conventions, man. And, you know, that Obama speech in 2004 where he talked about the two Americas, you know, that put him on the mainstream spotlight. That set him up for his 2008 run. That was a big step. That was a big deal. And so it could have continued her mainstream support, especially amongst the Democratic voters in the Democratic primary, which could put her on the front stages to being a primary challenger, maybe not in 4 years, but maybe in 8 years, maybe in, 12 years, whatever, somewhere around there. They just don't want her to get more mainstream coverage is the truth. And that's a pretty big story in and of itself. But Bernie Sanders looks like dropping some bombs.